World Employment Confederation is the voice of private employment services around the world, and a crucial delegation at a gathering like this one. I'm Andrew Wilson from Reuters Plus, and I'm here at the Global Labour Market Conference in Riyadh. It's a conference that unites industry leaders, policymakers and experts in discussions about the ever-changing workplace, and it explores the challenges and changes we all face on the horizon. Today, I'm joined by the president of the WEC, Bettina Schaller, to talk about private and public sector cooperation and the need for agility and adaptability in a global workplace. Bettina, great to see you. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. First of all, this conference, in your view, how important is it that countries hold conferences like this one?
Excellent question, because very often one thinks, oh, just another conference. Why is this needed? You know why this one is special? It's because of the region where it's taking place. So far, in this entire labor market policy environment, there hasn't been much focus on the Middle East. Having said that, we know that this is a region where growth is happening, investment is happening, and where change is needed as well. So this conference, from that perspective, is different. And what's been great here is they have realized that they want to convene the world, right? So it's not just limited to the region. There are ministers and stakeholders from Africa, from Europe, from the United States as well. So there is this merit of being just another conference, but with a slightly different spin to it.
So speaking more generally then, what sort of challenges does the WEC face in terms of labour policy and employment globally around the world, but also in the Middle East?
The WEC, which is the World Employment Confederation, the advocacy voice of the private employment solutions industry. So these are all the companies around the world that are bringing the job solutions to the labour market, to the workers, to the businesses, and actually to governments as well. And well, the challenges we face is actually that in many countries we cannot operate and cannot bring those solutions to the markets the way we would like to. And systemically, of course, we see that a lot of labour markets don't operate at their full potential either, right? There's either lack of collaboration or there's not enough funding, as a matter of fact. Finances are always a topic. And again, there's not experts at the table who deal with employment issues on a daily basis who are able to be part of those conversations.
And as the markets modernize and as the labour landscape changes, how important is the need for public and private policy sharing and cooperation?
Well, it's fundamental, right? And I mean, you just mentioned public employment services, private employment services. The one can't without the other. We have elements of efficiency, elements of productivity. At the end of the day, labour markets have increased in complexity to such an extent that, again, you need the experts around the table. Now, of course, private employment services are for profit, but one important piece here is that workers are never charged. So whatever solutions are brought to the table are financed, again, by governments, by businesses. What we see is that the private employment services industry is driven by impact. It's driven by outputs, it's driven by results. And so if that industry is able to be part of the system, that is where we see the biggest change made.
I mean, look at a gathering like this and you think of the Middle East, as you mentioned, the global South, all these economies that are trying to grow and take their place in the global economy, but the pressures are on them from all sides in terms of sustainability, in terms of greening their economies, in terms of modernizing to a fast-paced future and all the rest of it. What sort of pressures and challenges are these organizations trying to adapt to on a yearly basis?
Let me pick out of all the challenges, there's many, maybe two. The one is the whole skilling piece. We know it. This is what's going to make a difference. And these days with the digital development and the digital challenges, countries, organizations need to have those basic digital skills right. But again, the question is, are the education systems fit for purpose? No, they're not. So who can come in here? And this is where private employment services have been developing, based on their know-how, digital skilling programs where they're able to be very tailor-made to the needs, either again of a company and organization or the needs of governments. I have members of World Employment Confederation who have built solutions in the digital skilling space, who are working with big tech firms, with again governments, on just scaling up the digital skills know-how of select populations. So this is one practical example. The other example is the transitions piece. We have existing workforces who need to shift and who need to change from one industry to another. Well, that is easily said, but is it as easily done? This is again where private employment services in the career transitioning, in the career guidance space, know how to pick up with organizations those cohorts of workers and then systemically accompany that change. So two concrete examples.
And two things strike me with that. One, of course, is the catch-up factor. You'll have thought leaderships, you'll have certain economies that are way ahead in terms of modernization and are tackling or working out policies to deal with this kind of skills lag and the transition of employees and so on. And then you'll have other economies that are playing catch-up, which means that the situation is not necessarily completely global at any one time. And also, post-pandemic, we're learning to realize once again that the world is an unpredictable place, and that things can change quite quickly. So we need to be resilient and adaptable as well.
There's a lot of things to unpack in what you've just said. I mean, one, the fact that every country is different is clear. And actually, even within countries, we have many situations where there's regional differences, where there's actually differences at city level. I mean, if I look at a federal country, in Europe, you will have zones that are economically further developed than others, that are more agriculturally or manufacturing focused. Even huge economies like the United States, like China, we know there's cities that are focused on development and where that environment for transitions and for skilling and for bringing the people into that digitally fit world, where that environment is better than in other cities, and it's the same country. So that is a fact. This is why my approach these days needs to be just very tailored to the sector, to the geographic place, to the needs. You also need to take in place demography these days, right? I mean, we know society is aging, we know there's young cohorts coming in. Well, let's look at that mix and let's work on that one. You need the experts to do that. This is where we come in. But overall, you're right, the resilience piece. I think it's more the agility piece that we need to be very aware of these days, right? Of course, we work in systems and we're used to making plans and, we've got our KPIs and we want to move ahead. We need to, right? We want to allocate budget to certain projects to move ahead. But we need to have this agility to tilt, to adapt, to course correct, notably because of the whole technological environment that is happening.
So bringing it back to Riyadh then, are you optimistic that this is another step in the right direction, that this is another move towards some sort of inclusivity and wider partnership around a global economy that surely is becoming ultimately one single economy in some shape or form?
I will forever be optimistic. So that one is clear. Is this another step? Yes, it is. When we started the conversation, I talked about the fact that this is a region that so far hasn't been on the map that much. One big element to me as well, which is specific to this region, is the vision. Saudi Arabia, the Middle East, has plans, and they're working towards that plan. That creates a completely different dynamic also when it comes to labor market policy making. We just talked about it, right? You need the agility, but you actually need to know where you're going. And this vision piece, I see less in other countries, and I think that it will have a positive effect on those other areas. And in terms of existing structures in global labor policy making, this change of dynamic, I think, will have a positive effect.
Bettina Schaller, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Great talking to you.
Thank you, Andrew. Great to be with you.
Bettina Schaller there, talking about the WEC and its crucial role in a changing world. Join me for more in this series, Shaping the Future of the Labour Market, when we'll be speaking to other thought leaders and experts at the GLMC.